I see a lot of familiar faces. Good afternoon to all, the old friends and the new friends. We give it 1 more minute and we take it. Some of you have seen a subset of these slides, so it would be a refresher. Others will see it for the first time. The way we plan to do it is I will take your questions. There are 4 sections to this presentation. I will take the questions at the end of each section, and then we'll leave time at the end in case you have other questions. I'm going to also write down my contact details. So in case you are not on my distribution list and you would like to be on the distribution list, as I deliver these webinars on a regular basis on different topics, be happy to add you on. You could also Google me. I have close to 30 video online, primarily geared towards entrepreneurs and head of their businesses, again on different topics. And then for those of you who are interested after this to have more one-on-one sessions, I dedicate 1 day per week to address those. So I have these one-on-one sessions on different topics, primarily to help entrepreneurs raise funds. But there are other topics that you would like to share, whether you feel that your idea is worth it or not worth it, and you want to have an outside independent view, I'll be happy to do this. Okay, let me start with 37. I'm sure there are going to be a few more joining.
Sure.
On this. Yes.
Constantin, I will just introduce the Solidarity Pro Bono Lab before.
Okay, go ahead. Yes.
So welcome everyone to today's session. I'm Sarah Jane Fahed and I'm part of the Solidarity Pro Bono Lab. So before we start with the workshop today, I will tell you who we are and what we do. So we're a group of 4 people. There is Daniel Riyad Aii, Anthony Bahlo, Jad Awada, and myself. And amid the economic crisis that Lebanon is going through and the challenges that businesses are facing today, we have decided, in collaboration with Veritech and the National Bloc, Al-Katla Al-Wataniyeh, to organize a series of free workshops. These workshops will be followed by a session, one-on-one session with the experts. All the details will be sent by email. And also, if you have any questions, I will be the host today, so make sure to type it, as Constantin said, in the chat box, and I will make sure that everyone's voice is heard. And thank you, Constantin, for being here.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you, the team. Thank you for inviting me. I was on another webinar, and some of you were about an hour ago, 2 hours ago. It was on a completely different subject. It was on the subject of business angels and the importance of business angels in supporting small, medium-sized businesses, not only in Lebanon, but across the region and in all emerging economies. So this is another topic that is close to my heart because we have set up a business angel fund back 4 years ago. This was Cedars Fund 1. We've set up Cedars Fund 2, Cedars Fund 3. We're now at Cedars Fund 4, so this is quite important. It's very important because during times of crisis, when banks are stopping to lend, when governments have very little facilities like Circular 331 and others to support small, medium-sized businesses, what is left is the diaspora and the business angels in Lebanon and outside Lebanon. And the same applies to all our friends that are dialing in from Africa, being it in West Africa or East Africa. I've seen some of you. I greet you. I welcome you on this. And the beauty of these webinars is that it's very global in terms of the reach. So it allows a number of you, if you have the time, to dial in. It also allows those who cannot dial in to have access to the recording. So Sarah, I take it that this will be recorded so that we could share it.
Yes.
Not join. Very good. Thank you, Sarah. Now, as an introduction, I just want to say, we mentioned Al-Katla Al-Wataniyeh. Actually, one of the closest friends of my mother, who is now 97 years old, was Raymond Ete. And Raymond was a very close friend, and I was a student at the American University of Beirut when the Civil War started, and we lived in Sana'a, which is very close to where Raymond Ede used to live and where Carlos is living now. Carlos and I were in school together. So if you want the friendship with Raymond and my mother and with Carlos and myself dates back more than 60 years. In the case of my mother, more than 80 years with both Raymond and with Pierre. So I, before I start, just want to thank particularly and most importantly Raymond's contribution to a number of us in West Beirut who needed to have somebody to refer to during this civil war, and he was always present. So this is, in some ways, this talk is dedicated to him, and just want to thank him for all the support and all what he did to our country. And I think we need more leaders like he was, in terms of transparency, in terms of competency, in terms of accountability, in terms of ethics, and in terms of building trust among different parties, political parties, religious parties. So this is an introduction to my talk. As you will hear, I'm a person who is a bit passionate about what I do, about the job that I do, and a number of you know me. So today this topic is an important topic because it's touching not only in Lebanon, but across the world and mostly across emerging economies, small, medium-sized companies. I call them MSMEs. M stands for micro, S for small, M for medium. Typically micro is below 5 people. Small is between 5 and 50 people, and medium is between 50 and 100 people. So this is the number of employees in these companies. So this is important in Lebanon, but it's also important in other parts of the world, as these MSMEs account for more than 95% of the total companies registered in the private sector across all emerging economies. And they account for more than half, in some cases 60% of the total working population in these countries. So if these MSMEs fail, the country fails. And today in our country, we're faced with a situation where the government is failing, the banks are failing, the institutions are failing. And so if we let these MSMEs fail, we would have failed as a whole entity. So a big chunk of my passion and my drive in life through Beritech and through other entities is to be able to help support these MSMEs in this country, in East Africa, in West Africa, and in the region, in terms of helping them set the foundation in order to be able to scale and be able to raise funds. Now, the crisis have hit hard. A number of these companies have closed shops. In our country alone, we have thousands that have closed shops. And it's very difficult when somebody have put all their life savings in it, and maybe more will close shops in the months and years to come, because this crisis, unfortunately, in our country is not only pandemic related, it's related to fundamental issues that we have in terms of governance, that we have in terms of transparency, that we have in terms of accountability at the political level and at other levels. And so my sense is the worst is yet to come, unfortunately. And I feel that the devaluation of our currency will continue. I feel that the number of companies closing shops will continue. I feel that the number of poverty, people below the poverty line, which were at 50%, will probably reach 70%. And this is terrible for a country that has been used to be called the Swiss of the Middle East, the Switzerland of the Middle East, is today in a very critical situation. So USAID, this is I'm not pro or but they asked me about. We started maybe about 6 months ago to conduct workshops. So these are crisis management workshops, and to conduct it in different parts of the country. And we've done it in Beirut, in the greater Beirut area. We've done it in North Lebanon, and be talking to these entrepreneurs, these head of small, medium-sized enterprises that are today struggling, and they need help and they need support. So I've done this, and then I sat down with the USAID mission, and I sat down Marut Shamas and others who were present in sharing with, having done these workshops. We've done more than 25 of these workshops across the country, and we've done as many in terms of webinars. What am I hearing? What are we hearing? And I'll share with you what are we hearing, and what are these founders asking for. And based on this, they asked me to tape these videos. So what we have is going to be taped and we shared with all of you, so you have a summary of those. But based on this, there is a number of programs that will be coming and addressing the needs of small, medium-sized enterprises in Lebanon and in the region. And very few entities are able to take these programs and to deliver them. At Berytech, we've been working for the past 17 years in doing this, in creating this ecosystem, in developing these entrepreneurs, in creating the business advisors community, the mentors community, providing funds, providing expertise, providing networks behind it, and will continue to do so. And I think we have never been as active as during these crises, and I think this is here for us to stay for years to come, unfortunately. The more the crisis will hit, the more you're going to have attention and focus coming from international donors to be able to support the MSMEs, to support the social enterprises, to support the NGOs in the country, so as to address the gap between those who have access to funds and those who do not, and those who are below the poverty line. So this is an introduction. For those who do not know me, my name is Constantin Salameh. I'm based between Switzerland, Lebanon, and Africa, where I've been associated with the Stanford Business School seed program for 5 years. And I sit on the board of different companies. Some of them are on the call. And I also fund personally some of these companies. I'm also sitting on the investment committee of different funds, VC funds, in the region and in Lebanon. Berytech Fund 1, Berytech Fund 2. We're just launching a new fund in West Africa with the founder of Stanford Seed, Trallance. And our aim is really to focus on the needs of micro, small, medium-sized companies. So what are we going to talk today? I know a number of you have, we're going to talk, so USAID basically funded this, and USAID will be coming up with a number of programs, some of them as big as 50, 70, $100 million. They are here to provide capacity building to these more small, medium-sized enterprises. And this will be a combination of grants and a combination of advisory services and a combination of, and this is very important, because in the middle of the crisis, when everything looks dark and everything looks bleak, you will have a number of good news coming in terms of entities that are willing to support, and support in a big way, to make sure that these number of scale-ups that we have in Lebanon, i.e. high potential micro, small, medium-sized enterprises, which account for about at least 2,000 of those across different sectors, receive the right support to be able to manage through the crisis and to do it in an effective way. So the talk today will be divided into 4 parts. I'll have an introduction. The 4 parts are here on this map. The first one is on cash flow. It all starts and it ends with your cash flow. Your ability to put together your cash flow, your ability to understand your cash flow, your ability to know how big is the gap in your cash flow forecast in the months to come, and your ability to find alternative sources to fund your cash flow gap. If you don't know what your cash flow looks like, if you don't know when the gap will come, if you don't know how big the gap is, and if you don't know how to fix this gap, even though you might be very profitable and sitting on a very strong balance sheet, your company will die. So the first to start with is manage your cash flow. And I'll introduce it. A number of you are familiar with it. We have tools that will be made available. For each one of those, I have tools and templates. I will share my contact details for those of you who are not yet on my distribution list. Happy to do this, and happy to share not only the presentations, but also share other news that we have in order to further develop this ecosystem, being it in webinars, being it in hiring position, being it in new programs that are coming up. So I'll be happy to share this. So we'll communicate those contact details. So the first is cash flow management. The second, which is quite important, is your risk management. If you don't know what are the different risks that you will be facing, if you don't know which are the important one and not the important one, if you don't know what is the mitigation plan that you have for your risk area, you're also in for a surprise. So we'll share with you how other companies are planning their risk management and framework that I call. And we have also tools to help you report those risk areas and being able to assess them and then being able to take the right action. So this is the second part. So the cash flow and the crisis management are what I call the hard skills of entrepreneurs. These are the technical skills. This is your analytical skills. This is your project management skills. This is your ability to be able to plan, to forecast, to raise funds, to cut costs. This is hard skills. On the right-hand side, you have what I call the soft skills. And it starts with aligning your key stakeholders, primarily your customers, but also your people, your staff, and also your investors, and to align them on what you think the new direction of your company is going to be. And it's not about hard skills. It's about listening. It's about empowering people. It's about resolving conflicts. It's about giving feedback, constructive feedback. It's about patience. It's about empathy. So it's about the soft skills, which are at the end more important than the hard skills. And as a leader, sometimes we forget these soft skills and we tend to focus only on the hard skills. Tell you the truth, for you to succeed, you need to be balanced between these hard skills and between the soft skills. Soft skills alone will not help you. Hard skills alone will not help you. You need to have both. So we will cover and we'll share frameworks and templates for each of these areas. And the last area is what I call the other side of the medal, and I share it with you, is that despite the crisis we're in, despite the very hard time that we're in, there is always, always something to learn from. So my question to every single one of you is, what is the one thing that you could learn that could lead to maybe some positive value creation? There is always an opportunity. You might not realize it now, but you will realize it very soon. So the question is, what is the opportunity that you can face, that you could face? How much does it take in order to be able to address this opportunity? And what is the help that you need in order to take this opportunity from an idea to a proper prototype, to a proper product or a service, and to get the right funding to help you to promote this idea? And it's in times of crisis that the best ideas would come. So this is the fourth point, which is for me equally important than all the other points, is not only focus on your cash flow problems, don't only focus on your risk problem and your mitigation plan, don't only focus on aligning your people, but also focus on what are you learning from this crisis and what is the future leading in terms of opportunities for you to be able to work and address. Okay, so it's a long introduction, but it's an important one. So the USAID has been, let me make sure I have click. Okay, this is it. I'm starting with this quote that we have. The program is also on crisis management is coming from GFK. So GFK, when written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger, and the other represents opportunity. So the message that I have to you now and throughout the presentation, I'll be talking for about an hour and a half, actually maybe now an hour and 15 minutes. And then I'll take at least a good half an hour to answer your question. So we would leave the question to the end, and I'll take your question one after the other. So what I'm asking and urging you to do is be aware of the danger. And we'll do this through the crisis management. We'll do this by looking at risk management framework. We'll do this by looking at your worst case scenario in terms of scenario planning. What if the crisis continues for another 6 months, another 12 months? What does it mean for your revenue? What does it mean for your customers? What does it mean for your suppliers on it? So this is the crisis part, the danger part. And you need to be aware of this danger part and be prepared to face the worst case scenario. Hence, scenario planning is important. Hence, risk management is important. But equally what is important is the opportunity. And always keep this in mind, because you only focus on the danger, you're going to get into a sort of mode which is not necessarily very constructive. look at all the problems, but look at the opportunities that come with it. And I urge you to focus on this. And a number of people have taken the crisis and be able to take a big learning from it and be able to develop new products, new services, or a new mindset, a new set of values. What is really important? Is this consumer attitude that we had, is really the way forward? Is our lack of respect to environment really the way forward? So you have a number of values that are starting to change slowly, not only in business owners, but also with our young people and also with others. So this is quite important to focus on this opportunity and to be able to change maybe your value system and to change the way you look at yourself, the way you look at your business, and the way you look at what you want to do for the rest of your life. You know, why are you here? What do you want to leave behind? And maybe it's different than what it was before this crisis. Okay, let me continue now in terms of the agenda. So the agenda here is several topics. Now, to be very frank, we're condensing in an hour and a half what normally I take 2 full days to deliver. So it's not going to be easy. So I'm removing a lot of the material. But for those of you who are interested, Google me and you have a list of these videos and you could see the more detailed one. But typically what we do is I'm going to cover the challenges that our micro and small medium-sized enterprises are facing in Lebanon. And it's the same challenges they face in East Africa, in West Africa, in the Middle East, in Southeast Asia. It's the same across emerging economies. The second is, what is the feedback? I've been working with, I've been meeting and preaching with hundreds of these owners, and I got a number of one-on-one sessions with them throughout the past 6 months. We do group coaching, we do one-on-one coaching sessions. So I got a lot of feedback in terms of what is not working, but also we got a lot of feedback in terms of what can work and what can we have a solution to address these problems. And I'll share those with you. Then we're going to have the 4 blocks. The third block is I'll go on cash flow management. This is session 1. The second one is on risk management. The third one is on the alignment of stakeholder. And the fourth one is on defining these growth opportunities and seeing how best to be able to raise funds. Because funds is available. It's available today. It will be available even more tomorrow. And this is the absurdity of the situation. The more the crisis is hitting, the more funds will be available. And I'm well positioned to know what are these funds because we've been in close communication with the donors and we know how much funds will be available. We know to which sectors they will be going, and we know how best to go and to make use that these funds are used in the most transparent, ethical, and value creation way. So this is quite important, and you need to be prepared because funds will be there. Prepare with your right ideas to be able to fund yourself. And then I'll summarize with the key lessons, and then we open it up to the question. So it's a big mouthful, and I hope you will find value to it. Now, I know some of you are very experienced in all these 4 sectors, and this for you will be a refresher. Or you might have, some 1 or 2 new ideas that you haven't seen. Others have been exposed, not to the same extent. Others, it might be very new to you. So it's difficult to be able to address the needs of all of you. For those all of you who are very expert in these domains, bear with me, and hopefully you'll gain something out of it just as a refresher. For those who have not been that exposed, hopefully this will bring a value to you. If it sounds like Chinese and it looks like Chinese, it doesn't matter. It is going to feel this way for the first time that you use it, but hopefully with time you will see that cash flow, risk management, communication plan, aligning your stakeholders, being ready to raise funds behind it will become part of your daily DNA business that you have. Okay, so let me continue. So what are the objectives? One is to improve your leadership, financial and crisis management skills. We're going to look at tools and templates. So we will have tools. You will need to understand these tools, and I strongly encourage you to go and apply those tools with your people, in your staff, in your company. And if you need help, we're here. We're here to help on a one-to-one basis. If you want more in-depth help, I sit on the board of a number of the companies. A number of you are on this call today. And what we do during these board meetings is apply these templates, apply the tools in order to make sure that we have a much healthier foundation in terms of governance in the organization, especially during moments of crisis. We want also for you to understand the crisis and risk management framework. the communication plan, the best way to communicate, and then we will want you to be prepared for funding whatever opportunities you will identify or you maybe have already identified during this crisis. Okay, what are the challenges? I'm mentioning the slides in Lebanon, but I could take it and replace Lebanon by emerging economies. So a number of you are from different countries on this call. In Lebanon, we have 40,000 MSMEs registered. They account for, as I said, 97%. In the world, 95% of all registered companies are MSMEs. And in the world, in some cases, they account for 60% of the jobs in the private sector. So if this sector fails, take Lebanon, for instance, where you have about 500,000 people being employed by MSMEs. Each person has about 3 other people to his responsibility, children, wife, parents on it, 3 to 4. It means that half of the population depends on these MSMEs. If MSMEs fail, the country fails, and we cannot afford to have them fail. Banks are failing, and some of them will close shop for different reasons. I don't want to go into it. The government, unfortunately, has failed us on a number of occasions and a number of years. And hopefully whatever will come out of it will be on a much sounder basis that we have. But we cannot have MSMEs fail. And this is why I and a number of others, we feel very strongly that we have a responsibility to be able to support it. And this webinar is one of the elements that we do. It's not the only thing. The frameworks are available. The webinars and the presentation will be available. It's all free, it's all available to you. The time to sit down with you on coaching session is also available. Ability to have you present and pitch in front of business angels will also be available. So we're here to be able to create this ecosystem that will help you be successful. Now, the second part here is that the banks have put 2% of the bank loans are geared to supporting MSMEs. And this is not only in our country, it's worldwide, in emerging economies. You know what it is today? Zero. Zero loan have been extended to MSMEs over the past 6 to 9 months that we have been going through this crisis. And this is not acceptable. It's not acceptable because the large companies have funds. They have funds outside, they have funds in the country, they have funds, but the MSMEs don't. And without bank loans, these companies are severely at risk. The third element here is that we have a number of them, but only 2% have benefited from our ecosystem. And 2% is not that great. We really need to move this figure from 2 to 20% minimum. And this is important, and this is why I believe that all of you here, or most of you who are heads of enterprises, and you have friends who could benefit from this ecosystem and the service that we provide, for them to come and to express, and I'll be happy to include you in our database, in our distribution, so that you are aware of what will be happening in the future in this country. We have 400 of these MSMEs in our country who receive grants, debt, or equity funding through business angels, through accelerators, through VCs, venture capitalists, and private equity firms. And we have created an ecosystem. So this existed. And Veritech alone have funded 150 of these companies over the past 12 years. We started with the first VC fund back 13 years ago. This was Veritech Fund 1. No other funds was available, not only in the country, but also in the region. Now we have a number of these funds being available, which is great news. But the availability of fund is not enough. A fund could help finance, it's fine, but it's not enough. If you don't add value to the companies that you finance, you're not doing your job. So providing the money is important, providing value-added services is equally as important, and being able to help these companies scale and raise more funds is really the ultimate. So you're not only an investor, you're an investor that needs to create value, and this value is not only financial value creation, but also social value, especially as 50% of the population is below the poverty line, and this might increase to 70%. So this is quite important, and MSMEs have an important role to play. Now, I personally believe that 5% of these 40 are what we call the scale-ups. What is a scale-up? Is a company that has the potential to be able to scale and to grow significantly, not 5 to 10% per year, but 50% per year, maybe doubling their business year after year. So our role is to select these MSMEs, to make sure that these are successful, to build these success stories and have these success stories take the best practices and apply it to the others. And this is where we'll be focusing for the next 2 to 3 years, is to focus on these scale-ups, on companies that have the potential to really increase their businesses. And we will have a number of programs to help select them. Not only in this country, we do it across the region. And the last one here is to make sure that we have different programs to support it. So this is a bit, so if you look at the challenges specifically, these are the key challenges that companies are facing, small, medium-sized companies are facing. It's access to one, funding. Constantine, this is great, but if I do not have access to funding, I'm not able to invest. And if I don't invest, I'm not able to scale. So don't talk to me about scaling if you cannot tell me how do I raise money. So this is number one. So if you want to help me by clarifying my priorities, clarifying my growth, which we will do, have a good transformation plan or a good business plan, but also help me by telling me where can I get funds, being it grants, being it debt, being it equity. This is the first challenge, and it's killing them because cash flow gaps are here, and they're serious and they're big. And if we don't address these cash flow gaps through additional funding sources, the sector will fail. The second is access to talent. Their top people are leaving. Why do I want to stay? The country is going through very hard times. I don't trust the government anymore. I don't trust the banks anymore. Everything is polluted. The air, the water, the whole infrastructure is not working. I'm even concerned about my own safety. I'm concerned about the safety if you're married, of your children, of my parents, if you're not on it. So people are leaving. And the ones who are leaving are the best talent. And this is very sad. When you have 40% of the youth that are currently unemployed in a country where we had unemployment rate below 5%, this is bad news. When you have 40% of the graduates who are leaving because they cannot find the right job, this is very bad news. So access to talent, retention of talent is quite critical. And a number of these companies have raised it. The third problem that they have raised is access to markets. Constantine will limit it. Lebanon is a small country. We need to have the capacity to be able to export. So what do we need in order to be able to export? What are the certification? What are the process that we have to go through in order to make sure that we could export? Where should we export? Which country would it make sense for the product and services that I have? What should be my way of exporting? Should I go through setting up an own company? Should I go through a distributor? Should I go through a joint venture? Should I go through a licensing agreement? What is the way to export behind it? All these questions are valid questions, and they need help and they need answers behind it. The fourth one is access to technology. If you don't have a differentiation, and technology is here to provide you with this differentiation. Most of the successful companies that we have funded, most of them, if not all of them, have a technology edge. So my question is, what is your technology edge? How can you keep this edge today? How can you keep this edge in 3 years down the road or in 5 years down the road? As an investor, you would like to invest in companies that have this competitive edge and then can sustain this competitive edge over time. This is quite important. The other problem is access to advisory services. You know, they have all their issues, funding, talents, market, innovative technologies. They don't have the answers. So you need to provide them with experts, with advisors, with mentors, with people who could be here and help them in order to be able to find the answers to these questions. Because you feel alone when you're heading your company and you have no one to talk to. And at Berytech and others, we have created this network of business advisors, of mentors, of experts across different sectors and across different fields who are here to listen to you, to understand what your main problems are, and to be able to find you, help you find the right solution to this problem. So this is quite important. The one before last is access to best practices. You know what? You have problems, but guess what? Most of you have the same problem. And you want to know what is the best way to go about it? Every single one of you have done something right in order to be able to address the problem. Get together, share best practices. So have this platform and this network that allows you to share best practices is quite important. In Berytech, we have created several. Koots is one that we do for agricultural companies. We're going to create another one for clean technology companies. We're creating another one for social enterprise. I'm working with AUB and USG to do one for health tech, for companies in the health tech sector. So there are groups and entities and platforms that helps you connect with others like you who have similar problems. And guess what? They have also the answers, or some of you have answers to the problem. By sharing it, you find that it's quite valuable. So this is quite important. It's the role of entities like Veritech to do this. The last one is access to honest and valuable feedback. If you ask me to summarize what my role is, and I use this analogy and picture in a number of my speeches, I'm here, you have the answer. I'm only here to hold the mirror and to put the mirror in front of you. I'm also here to make sure that you have the courage to look at this mirror and to be able to express what is working and what is not working. And it takes courage because sometimes you feel like hiding and you don't want to address it. Put the mirror in front of you and then also help you take the tough decisions, because there are going to be tough decisions to take, either in matters of letting go of some people, letting go of some customers, letting go of some products or services. And this is difficult, very difficult, because you treat them all as family members. But if you don't let go of some, you might jeopardize the entire organization. So my role is really to take this mirror, put it in front of you, make sure that you have the courage to face it and to be clear about what you see, and make sure that you have the courage to take the tough decisions behind it. So this is in some ways the honest and valuable feedback. And all of the business advisors that we have worked with, and we have now a roster of about 50 of them across Lebanon that are present. And with Stanford Seed, we have more than 200 across East Africa, West Africa, South Africa, Southeast Asia that we're going to have. So these are advisors that are here to be able to help. So this is what I heard. Sitting down with these head of enterprises, listening to the problem that they have, and trying to find solution to these problems together. So what did they, I won't mention the track record, but as I mentioned, we had, I forgot to count them, but I would say now 50 different conferences on crisis management, 50. Webinars, face-to-face conferences in the center, in the north, on it. We have them in East Africa, we have them in West Africa. I do it adapted to some of the companies, large companies that we work. I'm doing one, we have people from Yahoo here, and we'll run another session in 2 weeks to the entire leadership team. So we adapt this to the different organization, to the different sectors, to the difference. So this is coming, and this is not enough. The most important element is the one-on-one session and the coaching session about it. Because you might have the templates, but it's how you use the templates, or how you take decision based on these templates that is important. And for this, you need to sit down with someone who could help. It could be me, it could be any other person that you trust, that has the competency to be able to explain to you what these are and to be able to adapt it to your organization so you could take the right decision. Now, what are the key risk areas? I shared them with you. So what are the expectations? They all came up with the expectation that are summarized in my first slide. Constantin, we don't know how to go and map our risk. We don't know what sort of mitigation actions take place. Fine, risk management. We don't know what are the different scenarios that we have. We don't know what is the realistic scenario, what is the worst case scenario. And for each of these scenarios, we don't know what is the impact on our cash flow. We do the scenario planning. We focus on the worst case, and we try to help you develop your cash flow forecast for the worst case, so that you are prepared, whatever is the worst thing that could happen in terms of your drop in revenue, in terms of your maybe increase in expenses that you have, how big is this gap and how to address it. We don't know how to go about aligning our people. We're afraid to come up with a message and then change the message in a week. We're not taking seriously. We are changing the way. So this is our credibility is at stake. We lose the trust of our stakeholders. And this is very tough for any founder of company. So how do you go, and I'll give you some tips in terms of how do you go about aligning your people and managing through this very difficult time, and frameworks on how to do it. And happy, of course, because this is about soft skills. It's about really listening. It's about encouraging. It's about empathy. It's about planting seeds. It's about being passionate about who you are, being passionate about your job, even being passionate about your country when your country is going down the drain on it, because this passion is contagious. This passion would help you overcome the obstacles that you have. And the last one is expectation in terms of what are these opportunities that I have? I don't know which are. So we help you list these opportunities, map these opportunities, prioritize these opportunities, understand how much funds is needed, and then help you raise the funds. So this is if you want the expectation, and this is why we put it together in this session webinar. But trust me, it takes much more than an hour and a half or 2 hours to go through it. But this will give you a flavor. And if you want more, we will have more of those, and we'll continue on a much more detailed basis. Each of these dimensions is at least half a day, and to be frank, should be a full day. So what we're doing here is trying to put together in 2 hours what normally would be about a 4-day session that we have, because we also need to have people that are contributing, and I normally ask you to come and to contribute. When I have the framework, I ask you to work on these framework, to come back and to present that we do. We don't have the time this time, but we'll do it during future sessions. Okay, I use these slides, and a number of you are smiling and saying Constantin is always using the same slide on this. The content might vary, but the slide is the same. I love this slide because first I love the sea, and this is a sea, and this is a sea with a lot of waves. And trust me, all of you I know have gone through a number of waves. There are going to be even higher waves coming in. And you're this sailing boat. I also love sailing, and because it's a place on top of mountains or in the middle of the ocean where you really are facing yourself and facing the universe and facing God. So this is in time where you have complete silence, that you really are soul searching, looking back at your life and deciding what you want to do for the rest of your life that you have. So, so this boat in the middle of the sea is probably like what I love hiking. For those of you who know me and who hiked with me, we hike for 6-7 hours every Sunday with a good friend who is one of the best hikers and knows the country like no one. And I won't mention his age, but he is significantly older than I am, but such a great hiker, because in these moments are moments where you source yourself and link to your real values. So here what you do is you have this slide with a lighthouse. The lighthouse is what? The lighthouse is your personal lighthouse. It's your company lighthouse. It's basically where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? What is your life project? Why do you exist as a company? What do you want to achieve? So tell me, shape me, design, paint, what is your lighthouse? As a company, what is your lighthouse as an individual? What do you want to do in 10 years, 20 years down the road? What do you want to be remembered for? Tell me what it is. This lighthouse is where you want to be. And the clearer is the lighthouse, the more easy it is for you to be able to get there, despite all the different waves that you're going to have. And I always use this analogy of a writer, psychiatre called, I forgot his name, but I remember the name as I discuss his, he came up with the concept of logotherapy. Logo is knowledge, therapy is curing. And he went through concentration camps. And this gentleman noticed and observed that the people who made it through concentration camps were not the youngest, were not the fittest, were not the one who were in the best health, were actually the one who were convinced that their destiny was not over because they still have something to do in their life. Now, I started this conversation talking about Raymond Aidé. Raymond is one such person that knew what his lighthouse was. And he knew how to get there. And he knew how to mobilize people to be able to get there. So in some ways, he is the role model that we could all be. I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional. But your role is to find what your lighthouse is. And your role is also to make sure that you know how to get there. And the clearer it is to you what this lighthouse is going to be, the clearer it's going to be for the people that you're leading in your organization. And the clearer it's going to be for only your personal life, because all of us have a certain lighthouse and all of us needs to understand what it is. Now, in this context, effective crisis management is the foundation for sustainable value creation in turbulent times. So it is on the crisis management aspect, you need to have this clarity. So what are the different elements? It's really the one is to make sure that you have a risk management framework with clear mitigation plan. You also have a clear plan to align your stakeholders, and you have a passion for managing your cash flow as well as possible. So keep this in mind. We're talking technical skills, they're important, and this is part of your leadership skills that you have. Sorry for this emotional thing that I have, but I think it's important to pay honors to the people that have helped shape this country on a much more solid foundation than what it is today. What is the definition of crisis? The definition of crisis is an element that comes in, and you have three common denominators. One, it's a severe threat to you and to your organization or to your country. The second element, it's an element of surprise. We were not expecting it. It came, the pandemic came, and nobody was expecting it, except a few people that were planning for this. And the third one is that you have a very short time to take decisions. And it's going to be one decision after the other decision after the other. So you're under tremendous stress pressure. It has a big threat on your organization, and you did not see it coming. So, and the last one is that it's the force is defining the quality is the need for change. Is to be, because a lot of organizations have this crisis coming in, but they're not ready for the change. And this is where I see your role as a catalyst for change. So if you really want to succeed, is how do you create change when crisis is hitting you by complete surprise, having a major impact on your business, and at the same time giving you a very short time to be able to decide. So this element in terms of resilience is fundamental. And probably we as Lebanese are as resilient as you could have. Look at us across the world. We have been leaving the country because of different crises, civil war and others, and establishing ourselves overseas and integrating these, and whether it is in South America, in Latin America, in the US, in Europe, in East Africa, in West Africa, in Australia, with resilience is part of who we are. And resilience is a fundamental element in the leadership skills when you're facing crisis. So this is, because crises are here, the good news is they have a beginning, but they also have an end. And having this, and most of the countries around us in the region went through similar crises. Egypt, Cyprus, Greece, Turkey, don't mention Syria, that is in complete chaos now. And these are all our surrounding countries that we have. Israel went also through a major crisis, number of crises. All of them went through the crisis, and all of them went out of the crisis. And they went out of the crisis leaner, more focused, and more resilient to be able to adapt to other crises. If they could do it, we can do it. And I have full trust that the Lebanese entrepreneur will be able to do it. Full trust that this happens. But you need the tools and you need the advisory services to be able to help you do it. Let's start with the first one on cash flow management. Now I'm going to go on the summary of it. I cannot go into the details because of the time constraints, but there is a lot of literature and there is other sources of information available. And most importantly, find yourself someone who you trust, who has the competency and being able to respond to your question. So my first talk clear on is your company would live or die by the quality of your cash flow forecasting and your ability to find the best solution to address your cash flow gaps, short and medium term. What does it mean? It means that if you don't know how to put together your cash flow forecast, you're in a bad situation. If you put your cash flow forecast and you don't know how accurate it is in terms of scenario planning, you're also in a bad situation. If you don't know when is your cash flow gap going to happen and how big is your cash flow gap, you are in an even worse situation. If you don't know how to address your funding gap, you're also in a bad situation. You need to get on top of this. Even if for you say, Constantin, I'm a designer, I'm an architect, I'm a sales guy, I'm an operation guy, I'm a technology guy, trust me, whatever you are, you need to speak the cash flow language. And people focus on the income statement, they focus on the balance sheet, but if you are not on top of your cash flow forecast, it's not going to work. So get yourself someone who can, But even if you get someone you need to be able to speak his or her language. And this is very important. So what are the statements? I'm going to keep it simple. Some of you are on top of it. Some of you have CFA. Some of you have a complete expertise in it. Others have never seen an income statement. Typically, financial statement is something that you have. You might not realize it, but even on your personal account. I'm a Swiss citizen and I file income taxes. And every time I file income taxes, what I do is I complete these 3 statements. Why? Because in Switzerland, they don't only tax you on your income that you make and the profit that you make, they also tax you on your balance sheet. They look at your total assets, they look at your liabilities in terms of the debt that you carry, whatever is the net amount, they tax you on it. They look at your revenue, they look at your expenses, they look at your profit, they tax you on it. Okay, and on a cash flow statement to decide where is your money coming from and where is the money going out so that they're on top of it. So they do it. So without knowing it, I'm actually filing my personal balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow statement every single year for the past 35 years that I've been a Swiss citizen that you have. So what is a balance sheet? A balance sheet is a snapshot at one point in time, typically at the end of the year, but you could have it at the end of the quarter. And this snapshot is a snapshot of what do you owe, what do you own. So what do you own? So you have a bank account, you own it. You have a car, it's an asset. You have people that owe you money, it's an asset. You have a factory, it's an asset. You have raw material that you're using, it's an asset. You have inventory of finished goods, it's an asset. You list all these assets and it's very clear. It's black and white. We know what is the value of your cash deposits. We know what is the value of the portfolio that we have. We know what is the value of your asset, being it land, property, car, we know it. So at the end of the day, we know what is the total value of your asset. And at the same time, we know what is the value of your liabilities, i.e. how did you fund these assets? Either you borrowed money, so we know how much money you have through the different loans that you get. We also own, if you have suppliers, how much you own your suppliers, owe your suppliers. And lastly, how much money you have put in and your shareholders have put in your company. The summary of this, your assets and your balance sheet and your liabilities is your balance sheet. And the difference between your assets and your liabilities is what we call the shareholder equity. And this is the net book value of your company. And it's the first indication of what your company value is. Of course, it's going to be adapted to the market conditions. But this is a balance sheet. Snapshot at one point in time, what do you own and how you financed it, either through your suppliers or your bankers or the shareholders that you have. Very simple. The second one is your income statement. How much money did you make? 2019. How much revenue? What were the cost of producing these revenue in terms of cost of goods sold? And what are the other costs? I call them sales and general admin costs that you have. What are those costs? And the difference between the revenue and the cost is your profit. Did you make profits or you didn't make profit? If you made profit, we have taxes. If you have borrowed money and you have interest expenses, we put the interest expenses behind it. So this is your income statement. It's not a snapshot, it's over a period of time. Typically, you do it on a monthly basis for you to know how much revenue has been generated, or on a quarterly basis, or on an annual basis. So this is important that you do, and it gives you the amount of money that you have generated, the related expenses, and the profit or the loss that you have generated. The last one, which is normally the one nobody uses, is the most important one, is your cash flow. Where is your money coming in and how is your money getting out of the company? And this is the one that you should be focusing on, because you could have a strong balance sheet, you could have a strong income statement, good revenue, low cost, but very profitable, but you could be bankrupt because your cash flow gap has not been addressed. So this is quite important to focus on cash flow statement, and it's in most of the cases the statement that is the least understood and the least applied across all the small, or most of the small, medium-sized enterprises. Get your act together, sit down with your finance manager or with your accountant or your external auditor. If not, come back to me and show me your cash flow statement, and I will tell you immediately what is working and not working in terms of your focus. Okay, so this is important on it. So I don't want to spend more time. The balance sheet is the list of your assets. So typically, what are the assets? The cash in your banks, the inventory that you have, if you're producing, you have finished good inventory or raw material. the receivable that the customers owe you, the plant, property and equipment, and maybe goodwill. You know, you might have patents, you might have a strong brand, you might have IP because of the software that you have created. This goes under goodwill. The problem that we have in Lebanon and in emerging economies is most of your cash is not in your bank account. It's sitting in your inventory or sitting in your receivable. And this is our problem, is we sit on inventory of 6 months or 9 months, and we sit on receivables of 12 months and 18 months, especially if we have been selling to the government. And all our cash is either in our inventory or it is in the pocket of our customers. And this is why we go bankrupt. Although we are very profitable, but we don't have the cash to be able to honor our cash commitments, outsourcing the cash, the uses of cash. So this is very important. And if you want the combination of cash, inventory, receivable, minus the payable is what we define as working capital. And our number one issue in cash flow management is our working capital is way too high than it needs to be. And you have the responsibility to sit down with your board and find ways to reduce your working capital. We also call it CCC, which is the cash conversion cycle. How long does it take to convert your order into cash that you have? And this cash conversion cycle, in some cases, could be as long as 6 months or as long as 12 months. And this causes these companies to go default. So you need to be on top of your cash and you need to be on top of your working capital. So your asset on one side, the liabilities is basically what you owe. You owe in terms of suppliers, we call it payables. You owe it to the banks. It's either short-term, in most cases it's short-term. In Lebanon, you have very little long-term. Some companies have long-term debt behind it. So this is also clear. And the difference between the two is what we call the owner's equity, or the value of the company, or the equity value of the company, the book value of the company, which is your total assets minus your total liabilities. And this, the stronger is this, the more interested the banks are. If this is negative, nobody will touch you, even with a long pole. So this is your role, is to manage your assets and manage your liabilities so that you have and increase your owner's equity. And the unfortunate thing that we have today is we realize that we have been loaning money as receivables to customers, and these customers are going bankrupt. So what happens is I had assets which were receivables of $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, and now I realize that they are worth half of what it is. What does it mean? It means that whereas your bank debts don't move, the bankers tell you, this is what you owe me, this is what you signed for it, this is what you're going to pay me. And you need to sell your entire company, but I'm going to be paid first before anybody else gets any money, any of the shareholders get money. So what it means that a number of companies, not only companies, the banks in Lebanon today are facing situation where they sit on loans, and these loans are NPL. What is NPL? It's a non-performing loan. These are loans of people or companies that cannot pay them back because of the number of default, because of the closure of companies. So what it means that the shareholder equity used to be high, 10, 15% in terms of their asset value, and now is shrinking below the minimum acceptable by Basel standards for banks. And this means what? That a number of our banks might be in a position of default because of the non-performing loans and because of the fact that these non-performing loans have an impact on their. And a bank that has negative equity or even low equity compared to the amount of assets that they have is a bank that is need to be restructured. And what is the best way to restructure a bank? Is you inject capital. Who is going to inject capital in a bank today? No one. No one. So what do? They force it. How do they force it? They convert your deposits into shareholders. So you become not a client of the bank, you become a shareholder of the bank. And this is what we call a bail-in that you have. I'm sorry, a bailout that we have. So this is where you become a shareholder of the bank. So this is quite important for you to notice and to be able to manage. The third one is, the second one is the income statement. This is the easiest one to understand. This is your total income, how much you've done. This is the total expenses that you have, and you have 4 buckets. Cost of goods sold. The difference between sales and cost of goods sold is what we call the gross margin. Sales, general, and admin, SG&A, which is called also operating expenses. It gets you to the operating profit margin, the most important measure of profitability. Your interest you get to profit before tax, and then the tax, you get to net profit. So this is your net income or net profit, fairly understood, fairly used, people know it. The one that is least understood is the cash flow statement. It looks complicated, I'll make it simple. Bring me your cash flow statement, I'll sit down with you and I'll help you make sure that you have it for different scenarios. But typically you have three buckets. You have one bucket, which is your cash flow from operation, which is typically your net income on your net profit. You add to it depreciation, deferred taxes, and you reduce from it the increase in working capital. This is the one in red that you have to be careful for. How much increase in working capital? Why do you increase it? How can we decrease this amount? This is number one lesson behind it. You focus on your working capital and you have different best practices to help you do it. And I'll be happy to discuss those with you on one-to-one. This is the first bucket, cash flow from operation. The second bucket is cash flow from investments. So how much are you, when you're selling pieces of land, a number of companies are doing it today because they don't have the cash. So what do? I sell a property, I sell a building, I sell an apartment in order to get the cash to be able to fund my cash flow from operation. So this is cash coming in. But if you invest, it's cash coming out. So today people are limiting the investment because there is no cash, which is very sad because a company that doesn't invest, country that doesn't invest, is a country that is going slowly under this curve of economic recession. The third bucket is financing. So the one is cash flow from operation. The second one is cash flow from investments. The third one is cash flow from financing. So how do you finance it? You either raise debt, increase your debt capacity, or you reduce it. When you increase it, it's cash coming in. When you pay back the banks, it's cash coming out. When you get new shareholders coming in, it's cash in. When you have shareholders that want to exit, it's cash going out. When you pay dividends to your shareholders, it's cash coming out. But it's a bucket called cash flow from financing. These are the three buckets. And this, you have a statement, and this statement, you have to update it on a monthly basis. It starts with your cash at the beginning of the month. It's the cash at the end of the month. And in between, you have these three buckets. Okay? I kept it simple, but I have templates. I'll share the templates with you. You fill these templates, and you want me to review them. I'm happy to review them and to tell you what's working and not working, without even looking at your income statement, without even looking at your balance sheet, just by looking at your cash flow statement and your cash flow forecast. Because this is the most important one that you need to be on top of. What are the lessons from the cash flow from investments? The first lesson, and you all understood it, is you have to closely monitor your cash flow and your cash flow forecast. You need to identify the gaps, and you need to build cash reserves now for worst case scenario. So tell me what is your worst case scenario, tell me what is your cash flow forecast, and tell me what is the gap, and tell me how you're going to fund this gap. Either by encouraging people to pay you by giving them discount on money that they owe you, or by selling a piece of property, or by selling a piece of equipment that you don't need, or by investing yourself money in the company, or by encouraging other investors to invest in the company, or by negotiating with your bank that if you're lucky, because most of the banks won't even talk to you to increase it, but you need to find the way to build your buffer and get a line of credit or shareholders funding before you need it. Don't wait for the moment you need it. It's too late. First message. Second message is all of you have fixed costs. What you want to do is shift your fixed costs into variable costs. And a number of you are doing it. You know, I talk to companies, so don't have fixed revenue, fixed rent. A number of you are retailers and you have rent, and it's a big chunk of it. Negotiate your rent down, or even better, negotiate your rent as a percentage of your revenue. You have also salary expenses. Negotiate with your employees. I don't want to fire people, but I want to make sure that this is the situation I'm in. We're going to take a salary cut, and this salary cut is related to the revenue. As soon as our revenue will pump up again, because they will at one point in time, I will compensate you for the shortfall. This is the way to shift your fixed costs in terms of your salaries, in terms of the rents that you pay into variable costs. The more you do so, the more a drop of revenue will be a drop of expenses. If your costs are always fixed and you drop your revenue, you're hit big time. So the second message, shift your fixed costs into variable costs and find ways to be able to do it. The third one, which is a tough one, is define and act on your core versus non-core. You look at your assets, you look at your functions in your companies, you look at your department, you look at your people. This is the tough decisions to take. If there is a fire in your building, who are you going to save? Who are you going to save if you have 100 people? Who are the top 20 or 30 people that you cannot do without? These are your core people. I apply the same thing for your assets. You have all this equipment, you have all this piece of land or whatever. What is core? What is non-core? What is non-core, you might want to sell it or you might want to outsource it. And you use this for your people, for your departments, for the functions. Do we have HR? We have payroll. Do you need payroll in-source or you outsource it? These are the difficult decisions that you have to make in order to be able to generate the cash that you need. So this is important. Dispose and outsource as appropriate. Cash in on your non-core asset, i.e. sell them, and then replace the CapEx purchase by sale and lease back. We do this, or buy leases. Don't buy equipment, lease the equipment, and return it if you don't need it. So this is ways to do it. Now, the fourth one is what I discussed earlier, and it's the most difficult one again. Your cash conversion cycle is your inventory plus your receivables minus your payable. And this is going outside the norm and here. And you have to focus on that. What do you do to bring down your receivable? What are the ways to be able to encourage your customer to pay and to be able to pay maybe with special payment terms? So this is things that you need to do. Same thing with your inventory. Same. So what is a DSO? Is your day sales outstanding. For the non-finance people, is how much receivable as a percentage of the revenue that you generate. Your DIO is your days inventory outstanding, and your DPO is your days payable outstanding. So we measure it in days of. So you map and you prioritize your age receivable, which is the most important one, and then you have a clear mitigation plan for each one of them. Other lessons in terms of cash flow: you identify, prioritize, and execute on your key short-term revenue growth opportunities. So don't only look at costs. Don't only look at working capital and at cash flow. Look at opportunities. Where can I make money in this crisis? And every one of you have a way to be able to make money, but you probably don't have the time, nor the patience, nor the energy to think about it. This is the time to think about it. And if you need help, we're here to help, because there are opportunities and they are available and other people are making use of it, or why not you? So map them, list them, prioritize them, and see how we're going to be able to address them and execute them. So always balance expenses optimization or reduction with incremental revenue growth enabler. Where is your growth going to come from? If not now, next month, or in 2 months down the road. The other point is to refocus your company on what you do best. I'm telling you for yourself. You know, you're spending your time doing so many things, but look back at your life. What are the sort of things that are really meaningful for you, that are completely aligned with who you are, the values that you have? And for the others, drop them. Drop them. This is the time to do it. Focus on the core. Focus on the essential. Focus on what you are here for. And don't waste your time and your energy and on doing things that are of little use, because it's part of who we are. It's the social network. It's BS. Focus on what really matters in it. And this you apply to yourself, but you also apply to customers, you apply to your products, you apply to your channels of distribution. And you will see that there are a number of customers where you're losing business. And you are losing business even before the crisis. Why do you keep them? What do you need to do? And this is difficult decisions to take. This is again the role of the advisor, is to put the mirror in front of you. And we look, and I list this, and you could see that people are completely surprised when they realize how much money they are making or they are losing by the customer that they have. So map your customers. Same thing for your products. Some products are extremely profitable. Other products are completely value destroying. And the channels of distribution. You've been relying on this distributor. This distributor is taking 50% in terms of your margin. Why do you need him? Online. Have your number of people are looking online to be able to do it. Develop your online presence. Strengthen it. Know how to get the right people to access it. And to be able to turn them into conversion rate into existing customers on it. So you have ways. What you have to do is look at it, face yourself. Do I want to really continue doing this way? So this is going about what is core versus non-core in terms of the last one, and one before is automate. The more automated you are, the better off you are in shortening the turnaround time and addressing. And the last one, get yourself a financial advisor. You don't have the answer. Get someone who has the answer. And we are, and when we work with these companies, we don't charge. We do it on a benevolent basis because we believe that this hopefully will create value to this organization and increase their chances of being able to succeed. So this is quite important that you get. Okay, let me check the time. Okay, I'm going to be more faster on the other ones. Now, the second one is on, this is a fairly easy one to understand. I use the same slide. The best way to predict the future in turbulent times is to shape it through the development of a comprehensive and shared crisis and risk management framework. So you need to do it. And it's very simple exercise, but don't do it alone. Do it with your team. Do it with your shareholders, if you have shareholders, or with your board, if you have a board. So all key stakeholders. So what do we do? It's 4 very simple steps. One is you identify and you list your risk factors. This is called the risk catalog. Very simple list. You list them. The second one is you map them. And this is what we call the risk heat map, is you put them in terms of probability of this happening and the impact on your organization. The one that have high impact and high probability are your red zone. So map them. See what is in your red zone and what is the other zone. Once you've done this, the step number 3 is you develop your contingency plan. For each of the key ones, what is the way to address this gap? And this is quite important for you to list it and to have it and discuss it, because you have different perspective with your key stakeholders. You might even involve customer, you might even involve a supplier, but primarily it's your staff and primarily it's your board or your advisor. The last one, which is the most important step, is once you have listed these mitigation plan, make sure that you integrate them. I call it KSI, which is the key strategic initiatives. What are these milestones that you need to implement? And what are these metrics that you need to follow and track? And we call it a BSC, which is a balanced scorecard, in order to be able to follow. Every single one of the 150 companies that we have funded, we imply the balanced scorecard. Every time that we sit down at board meetings and review meetings, we check on it. What was your milestone? What was your metrics? Where do you stand on it? On track, slightly off track, very much off track. Why off track? What are we going to do to fix it? This is the balanced scorecard that is transparent to all, that is clear accountability, and we have cascading it down the organization. This is solid governance. And I don't know how many companies in Lebanon are applying it. And it's very easy tool to implement. Now, another way of putting it here is this is a company, it's a company in financial services. We sat down to half a day. We listed the different risk categories: competition, regulatory risk, ICT risk, credit risk, etc. We put the probability: high, medium, low, low plus, low minus. What is the impact on it? And after this, we came up and we put the heat map behind. So this is a list. This is what we call the risk catalog. Then we put the heat map behind, and then we come up with mitigation plan. What are typical mitigation plan? This is an example on the strategy and business model. One risk is we have significant customer, contract, or supplier concentration. All our business, 50% of our business is coming from one customer or coming from one supplier. It's critical to diversify your client and supplier base. How do you do it? Identify new suppliers, identify new clients, go after it. This is a way, a mitigation action. And another one is intense competition with similar products and services. And this is typical of a number of companies. Everybody is doing the same thing that you do. Find out what is your differentiation factor. If you don't have one, build one and make sure that this is a sustainable one. What is your USP, which is unique selling proposition? Spend the time to define it. If you don't have one, this is where technology helps in terms of your automation, in terms of the way you deliver your product, in terms of the way you create the product, in terms of the IP that you have. What is it? So this is a way to mitigate. Another risk factor, and a number of you have it, it's foreign exchange risk. I buy in US dollar. Now it's very difficult because you can't pay in US dollar, but let's say I buy in US dollar and I charge in Lebanese pound. Lebanese pound devaluates by 80%. What happens? I'm completely exposed from a foreign currency. So you have to adjust your prices and reduce your foreign currency exposure. Trying to find out if you could source from Lebanon or from your country so as to reduce this. Because if you have this hedge between what you buy at a certain currency and where you're getting your money in different currency, it's a risk. And this risk needs to be mitigated. Another one is lack of investment requirement. I don't know where my growth opportunities are. I don't know how much investment I need. You don't know? Fix it. Get somebody to help you understand what are these growth opportunities, be able to assess them, prioritize them, and find out ways where you can get funding from them. Another example is we have the leader, and this is typical of a number of the companies, where the leader manages everything, from the purchase of your pen to the big $1 million investment decision. So what you cannot rely, because if something happened to this founder, the company is exposed, and no investors would like to invest in a company where everything rely on one person. So make sure that we have the right delegation of authorities. Make sure that we have the right client base to make sure that not everything depends on one person, which is the founder. These are just examples, and any of you have other examples. So I just not want to bore you on it. So what we do once you have identified your risk and you've identified your mitigation, we put it on what we call the balance scorecard. And we have here 4 pillars. It's another tool set. One is on the financials. So we look here, the stakeholder are the shareholders. The 2 is the customers. We look at customer excellence. The 3rd one is in terms of efficiency. What is your internal business process? And the last one is in terms of your people. And what we do is we create a 1-page, and under this 1 page, we have the most important measures of your performance. We call them the KPIs, for key performance indicator. And we have the most important milestone. These are the projects. These are the breakthrough projects. And we call them KSI, Key Strategic Initiative, 1 page. And we map them around financial performance, customer excellence, operational excellence, and employees excellence. And then we track them on a quarterly basis. In every one of the board meetings that I sit in the company that we have funded, we want to know where you stand. We have an engagement at the beginning of the year. We look at where you are, and in moments of crisis, it's as important to be able to get this and to get this transparency. And this is clear because on 1 sheet of paper, the whole board knows exactly where you stand and what is the help that you need, what is working, what is not working. If it's on track, it's green. If it's slightly off track, it's yellow. If it's very much off track, it's red. And it's not only the measures of performance, because the measures are a function of the milestone that you have done, i.e. the strategic initiative. If you need to raise funds, it's a strategic initiative. If you want to penetrate a new market, it's a strategic initiative. It's a breakthrough. It's something different that you're doing. If you are putting an ERP system in place to automate it, it's a strategic initiative. If you are hiring 2 or 3 selected leaders that you have, it's a strategic initiative. If you're implementing, I don't know, major customer event that you do or coming up with a new product, it's a strategic initiative. So you list them, you list when you're going to do it, and you list who is accountable for it. This is your balance scorecard. And then we sit down and we review it all together. So what are the learnings from the second category? 1, you have to identify and analyze and evaluate your risk early on. Don't wait for the crisis. And normally good companies do it every 6 months. And they plan for when the crisis comes, they are already equipped. Institutionalize your risk management process in your business and governance strategies already. So put it as part of your system. In our board meetings, every 6 months, we have a review of our risk management framework. And this is way before the crisis. And we have it, and it's part of how we manage the organization. Not all risks are negative. Some of the risks are actually bringing opportunities. To be open to the risks that come up with opportunities. Document all risk areas in your risk register, monitoring them, updating them, reviewing them, as I mentioned. The rest is straightforward. Use the appropriate strategy. You might have a risk. You might decide to accept this risk. You have the comfort of accepting and taking this risk. Or you might decide to refuse it. You reject it. Or you might decide to share it with your customer, or share it with your supplier, or share it with your shareholders. So you have different risk mitigation strategy depending what you have. So what I encourage you to do is don't look at risk and saying, no, we don't want it. Some of it, yes, we will take it. Some of it, we're going to share it. And some of it, we don't want it. So make sure that you have the proper risk strategy that you have. Always focus on the high probability and high impact risk, and learn from past risk management mistakes. When I took the job at one of the companies, I won't mention the name, and it's a big holding, very diversified. The first thing that I have done is I've looked at the key investments that they have done over the past 10 years. And I've looked at how they assess this investment before approving. So I put the investments, I've put the amount that have been put in, I've put the expected return, and I measured 5 years later, 10 years later, what was the return. So, and then I came up, and it was a huge shock to all the people present in the board. This is, you are the board, are responsible for these decisions. This is what you have done in terms of a track record on the major investment that you have done. So from this, what are the learnings? If you don't learn from your past mistakes, you're going to repeat them again. So by doing this, automatically you get the attention of the board, and you get the attention of the changes that you want to do in terms of the way investment have been made in the past, or the way you want to change the composition of the team, you want to change the company structure. This is what you do, is you create the burning platform by stating what has happened in the past and the fact that we did not learn from the past. So it's a key lesson to do. Let me go through quickly through the third element, which is basically aligning your people. Now, I don't want to take too much time on it, although it's a very important topic. Your role as a leader in times of crisis is to answer 6 questions. Who is your customer and what is your value proposition? Remember this, what makes you unique? Second is, how should your leaders behave with your people in times of crisis, in terms of it's a large organization? How do you go about communicating your strategy? This is what I call strategy communication. What are the performance metrics? Remember what I told you about the KSIs and the KPIs? And what are the process, the structure, the systems, the SOPs that you have to enable your people to do the job that you have? And at the middle, what is the culture that you want to have? And normally in crisis, you might want to look at your crisis, and you look at your culture and maybe change some of the values that you have. These are the questions that you need to answer. The clearer are the answers to these questions, the more aligned are the answers to the question, the most likely you are to face and to address the crisis that you have. So this, I'm encouraging you to take it and to answer these questions. So if you look at it on the culture, which is the most important one, what is your current culture? Maybe with the crisis, what is the new culture that you want to implement? What is the gap between the old culture and the new culture? And how do you go about addressing this gap? You are all familiar with this slide. We are going through this crisis. And if I ask all of you, where is your company or where are your people? You typically have whatever is the crisis. It's pandemic, it's COVID-19, it's the financial crisis that we have, it's the economic crisis or the political crisis, it's maybe death in the family, it's maybe a divorce that you have. We all go through crisis in our lifetime. And the more you go through crisis, the more you learn how to manage it in a better way. And to help you manage it, understand that you have 4 phases in any crisis. The first phase is denial. People refuse it. It doesn't happen. It cannot happen. It's not happening again. So this is the denial phase. The second phase is anger, confusion. Who is the black sheep? Who are we going to blame behind it? This is the third phase. We accept it. We explore new ways of working. And the fourth phase is the commitment. We are all aligned. And in all crises, personal, professional, the country that goes through, these are the crises. Now you could go through the red phase, because when you have this, and it's productivity, it's your revenue drop, it's motivation of your people, everything, and then it goes up. The axis on the horizontal is time, the other one is the, call it revenue, call it employee satisfaction, call it value creation, you go down. Now, if you are an effective leader, and you're here to provide one information in the first phase, this is why we are in this crisis. This is why it is happening to us. On the second phase, support, I'm listening. I'm listening to your anger. I'm listening to your strong emotion. I'm not trying to turn you off. I am listening here, and I'm listening here, and I understand on it. On the third option is to provide the clear direction, and the last one is to provide the encouragement and the involvement. This is your role as a leader. These are the soft skills. The better you are with these soft skills, providing information, good listening skills, good empathy that you show to the people who are very concerned, clear direction about the future, what the future is all about, clear encouragement in terms of what we need to do in order to prepare for the next phase of growth. Then we don't have the red phase, we have the dotted blue one. And this is what you need to do. And the difference between the two is you as a leader, how good are you with your soft skills? Now I'm looking at the time and I'm looking at it. Okay, so, and typically when you deal in your organization, you're going to have 4 profiles. You're going to have people in your organization that say they're the victim. It's always happening to me. It's not working. Always me. Why me? You have the critic. It's not going to work. What he's telling us is not true. I don't trust him. This guy is taking us to hit the wall. The others are the bystanders. They're not victims, they're not critics, they wait, they're silent, they want to see which way the wind is blowing, and depending on this, then they will act. And the last category are the navigators. These are the champion of change. You as a leader, focus on them. Focus on identify who they are. Map your people in the organization that you have. Are they victims? Are they critics? Are they bystanders? Are they the champion of change, the navigators? Focus on the navigators. Make sure that these people are well equipped, that they have your full support. Make sure that they have clear plan in terms of what they need to implement so that you have success stories, and then share these success stories. When you do this, the bystanders, they start to be and belong to it and say, look, it makes sense. The critic either is on board, or if not on board, you confront him. You're either on or you're off, but make your choice. This is where we're going. These are the success stories that we have, and the victim will hopefully change and abide to the So your role here is map your people, and each one of them have a different need. Focus on the navigator, work with them, and slowly by surely make sure that the others are embarking. It's not easy as a role to be able to map them. This is a person called Cotter came up with these 8 steps. You need to establish your sense of urgency. Here you don't need to, because we have the sense of urgency. We all feel it. Form a powerful coalition. Who are the 3 or 4 people that you trust blindly in your team or your advisors? Work with them and tell them everything. What is happening? Your cash flow position. What is the situation? Make sure that you have a powerful guiding coalition. People that you trust, that you work with. Then create a vision. This is where we're going. We have the crisis. We're in deep shit, but this is how we're going to get out of it. And this is the way we go about it. Communicate this vision, and I'll show you a way to be able to do it. Empower the others, especially your guiding coalition, to make sure that they have all the resources, all your time, you're always available 24 hours a day to make sure that these people, the champion of the change, are here to be able to make it happen. Then plan for and create those short-term wins, because there is nothing better than a short-term win. But when today we're in a government that says 97% of my track record has been done, when not a single reform has been approved and implemented, this is not a short-term win. And if you don't have short-term win, you should not be in this position, and you should be admitted and not say I'm 97% done. You basically are 0% done as long as you haven't implemented your reform. So you need to hold the people accountable for this. So it's very important that we plan for these wins and we make them happen. Consolidate improvements and produce still more changes to come. This is important. You institutionalize it, and finally you go on this. So this is a scheme that you need to, this is like your checklist that you need to do on it. Now, how do you communicate? This quote is important. I'm sorry, go back to it. When you're in crisis, don't expect the others to tell your team what is happening. Don't expect, you need to say it first. You need to say it completely. Don't say it in small bits and pieces every time you say it. You need to say it consistently. You're saying one thing, don't say the next thing, which is completely different, and you say it yourself. You don't have somebody else say it. This is a sign of a good leader. Say it first, say it completely, say it yourself, and say it consistently. So this, you need to have the courage to do this, and you need to do it, because they will never forget how you behave in times of crisis. They would prefer for you to be tough, but to be fair and to be transparent, than for you to tell half the truth, hide it, it plays against you. They will never forget how you behave during moments of crisis. Bear this in mind. Be yourself, be transparent, be available. This is quite important. Now, how do you communicate? I'm not going to go through much in detail, but this is very important. You need to map your stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? You have to prioritize those stakeholders. And this is the way to do it. You put it, how much have no influence versus high influence, how much are little impacted, those who are highly impacted. And based on this, you define what is the way you're going to communicate to each one of them. And this document is your communication plan. And I'll be happy to share communication plan of other companies that went through it during crisis, before crisis that you have. It's your role. But for this, map your stakeholders. Map them around this. List them first, map them, and then decide how best to communicate. And these are examples on how you want to communicate. Now, an easy way to communicate is we call the strategy house. Call it whatever you want to call it, but it's a house. You have your vision. This is your new vision and mission, why you exist, why you going, what you're going to do during this crisis and after the crisis. What are the new values that you have? This is also the pillar of your roof behind it. What are your strategic priorities, what I call the KSIs that you have? These are the 3 or 4 pillars. It could be growth, it could be retention of your customers, it could be establishing, I don't know, a stronger governance that you have, and what are the supporting. On one slide, you put your vision, you put your priorities, you put the supporting initiative that you have, and you have one slide on your balance scorecard. These are the 2 slides that you need. Very simple, but it's difficult to put it in one slide. Develop this one pager, and we force all the companies that we have funded not only to do their balance scorecard, but also to put their investment plan on one piece of paper. We call it the investment teaser that we have. So this is, and then make sure that it's communicated. So this is one way, and you have different tools. All of these are templates that we have that I encourage you to use, those that you feel are beneficial to you. Maybe you've been using several of them. This will be good. So what are the key learnings for this 3rd tip? Is 1, have the courage to face the mirror. This is the role that I've trained you. Communicate the reality and take the tough actions. Always adopt transparent, consistent, and ethical communication to build and strengthen this trust with your stakeholder. At the end of the game, in crisis, is how much trust are you building and how much trust have you funded. The more transparent you are, the more consistent you are, the more ethical you are, the stronger is the trust that you have with your people and with your stakeholders. Understand the needs, wishes, and values of your audience and adapt your message to these audiences. Now, the 4th one is for me important, is align your deeds, i.e. your action, with your words. Align your words with your thoughts and align your thoughts with your heart. If you have this, you have complete alignment. As a leader, I would say, chapeau. The alignment are these alignments are the pillars of the loyalty, respect, and admiration of your stakeholders. If you have one sentence to take this sentence. Your deeds with your words with your thoughts with your heart, what your emotion that you have or your values that you have makes you a strong leader. Be engaged listener, the rest is straightforward. Pay attention to nonverbal signs. This is quite important when you communicate. Okay, the last one, I want to leave time for questions. It's 6:34 on it, is on investment readiness. This by itself is a whole set of sessions. And these are the sessions, some of you have seen the slide. These are the different phases that you do. But before you embark on these phases, you list what are the growth opportunities that we have. And in crisis, every one of you have a growth opportunity. List them, prioritize them, and then you go through this. The business model canvas, the transformation plan, and we have templates. We run this across all of the companies that we work with. Your financial plan, we'll review it. What is your investment? How much money do you need? Where are you going to get it? What are the sources of capital existing? You're going to say, Constantin, we don't have sources. You do have sources of capital. Every one of our accelerators is providing grants to the companies that we fund. Today, 3 months ago, in 3 months, every one of our hackathon, and we run a hackathon for 4 days last weekend, we have provided prizes to our people. Every one of the business angels meeting that we do, the company that made it, they raise between $100,000 to $300,000 that we have. We have also equity funds that are today non-331 and not constrained by the government that are providing funding. So funding is available, but prepare yourself. And prepare yourself with the right pitch. Prepare yourself with the right idea. Prepare yourself with the right transformation plan. We will also help on the valuation, the selection of your investment partner. These are the phases that you're all aware of. And this is how we spend our time. If you ask me, how do I spend my time? Is doing this. Every one of them, it's a webinar. Every one of them are coaching sessions that we do with the companies. So this is quite important. And this is the process that you need to go through. It could be as short as 2 to 3 months. Clean2O is a company that some of you know that has gone through. It's a social enterprise in providing clean and drinkable water to different audiences. And we need clean and drinkable water these days. Even our tap water is definitely not drinkable with all the heavy metals that we have in it. And a number of refugees that we have that don't have access to clean water, which is a basic necessity that we have. They raised funds in the crisis. They raised about $250,000. Recently, $100,000 with CEDAR, which is the Business Angel Fund. They've been matched by Business Angels for $100,000, and they have another fund from another accelerator behind it. And you have a number of other companies that have access to funding today as we talk. Okay, so it's important for you. This is the gap. So this is what you know. So if you have a company, list me how you're doing on each one of them. I call them the 12 M's. And I have an article that I'm happy to share for those of you who are interested. How good is your mission? How clear is it? How shared is it? How complete is your management team? How good is your business model in terms of track record of value creation? How big is your market? What is your mantra, i.e. your differentiation? Is this solid or is this fake that you have? Do you have clear metrics? Do you have clear milestones? Show them to me. Are you measuring them on a regular basis? Are you monitoring them on a basis? Show it to me that you have, and etc. What is your risk register? What is your mitigation plan? Show them to me. No risk that we have, no mitigation plan. I'm not interested. Rank yourself, and this is the role of the coach, is to work with you and to see how good you are on each one of these steps. What are the gaps that you have and how best to address this gap? This is the business coach that you need, or the advisor that you need on your board or for yourself to do it. Now, what are the milestones? These are the milestones. If it's a new idea, the first thing you need is a prototype. The second thing that you need is to make sure that this prototype is addressing real pain points. The third thing is you need to make sure that there is a traction, that you have a track record, that customers are interested in you. Then you have IP potential or innovation potential is important, that you put together your investment teaser, 1-pager, 2-pager, give it to me, have a pitch deck, 10 slides to explain to me your idea, and then have financial projection that makes sense. The assumptions are realistic, and then have a realistic value. And we will find you the investors. This is our role, is to help you put these things together and help you face investors and get the money. And I could give you names over the past 6 months of companies that have raised funds. CCHO has raised funds, more than $250,000. Optique Vision have raised funds, more than $350,000 that I mentioned. Clean2O have raised funds, more than $250,000 that you had. MAD has raised funds. I was with the founder in a previous webinar. So this is all over the past 3 months during the crisis. So money is available, and we could find it, provided that you're well equipped and provided that you know how to do it. Now, these are the milestones that we shared. This is a review of it, the team, the governance that you have, the clear understanding of the sources and uses of funds, your roadmap that is very clear in terms of KPIs and KSIs, term sheet that you want to make sure to defend your interests, to make sure that when you have the investor, you're negotiating the right terms. Most importantly is your passion. You've heard me. I've been speaking for an hour and a half. I didn't stop. I didn't stop because I'm passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about the message I'm passing. I'm passionate about the people I'm working with and I'm talking to. And I'm passionate about the job. I'm passionate about the life, despite the reality of what we're facing today. And I'm convinced that there's going to be a brighter future. We will go through hell, and it's going to be, and it's only the beginning of it. But I'm also convinced that we will get out of it, and hopefully we'll be able to take our learnings from it. I also work on a political front, and we have a number of, you will see a letter coming in with the team, and hopefully also with the Bloc National and others, where we have about 250 leaders from the private sector, from the public sector, from the political group that are here, that are independents that we have, in order to put together an agenda and to on these reforms that needs to be done, but not only the agenda, the team that is going to implement the agenda and the roadmap. This is the roadmap that I've been showing you for companies. It's the same roadmap that we need for our country. And we have this event, we have a 2-day Congress that will be taking place next month or in beginning of August, in order to, and from this, there's going to be a very clear roadmap, and we'll ask for signature behind it, because it's the only way. You cannot wait and sit and wait for things to be better. You need to be an actor. You need to be an actor to what's happening here. So hopefully this passion that you have seen and you've shared and you've touched on it, this is something that you need to have, especially in moments of crisis, because it's contagious and because the people around you need it to be uplifted. So this is my last message. The funding sources, a number of them are available, grants are available, debt capital is available, and I could mention EBRD, I could mention LED, I could mention LEAP, I could mention Agri-Tech, Clean Tech, I could mention IM Capital, I could mention Impact Rise, all of them, I could mention Cedars. These are all funding sources available today for people who have good ideas and who have good products and who have the ability to be able to scale and make an impact behind it. What are the actives? I don't want to go through it now. We have a whole list of those of you who are interested. I'll be happy to share. You have here a list of some of them. Some are more active than others that you have in Lebanon, but the similar list will be available in East Africa, in West Africa, that we have. We have new equity funds coming in West Africa. We have new ones coming in East Africa too, the same way we'll have them in Lebanon behind it. Who is the right investor? You need to spend time. This is important. Don't take the first money that comes in. Make sure that you are spending as much time selecting your investor as you have been if you're married, selecting your husband or selecting your wife behind it. Because this relationship is a relationship for 10 years. You need to make sure, and you need to have your selection criteria, and during the due diligence and term sheet and shareholder agreement, you're going to learn a lot about your shareholders. So before signing the shareholder agreement, understand the values of who your investors are before you make the plunge. This is quite important. So you have different selection criteria, their proven track record, the number of completed transactions, most importantly, the alignment in values and leadership dimension, your view to know how the exit will take place. Other criteria that you have is to make sure that it's a smooth exit. When is it going to happen? How it's going to happen? The quality of their team, the same way he would look at the quality of your team, the number and quality of the references, the availability of the fund that they have, the dynamics of the due diligence process. What did you learn from it? Is this somebody that you trust? Is this somebody that you want to work with? Is this somebody that you want to overcome the obstacles together or not? This is quite important. So what are the learnings? I'm reaching out of, I need a glass of water. Anyway, so it's, one is do not aim for perfection. You will never on this investment journey. You would learn. You know, I was with Liz Yaoub, who is the founder of MAD, during the previous webinar that I had at 3 o'clock today. She went through 3 different phases. Every phase she learned. It was not perfect the first one. It was better the second one. It was even better the third one. So it's a process. Take the learning from the process. Don't try to aim for perfection. You will not have it. Reach out. You won't be able to get all the services yourself. You think you're a maestro and you have it. You might be. And you might be extremely good across all the board: finance, sales, marketing, HR, organization, leadership, change management. But trust me, you need to have good advisors, primarily on the finance side, primarily on the legal side if you're going to negotiate a term sheet or a shareholder agreement. And make sure that you have the right, if it's in technology field, that you have the technology expertise that you have. The selection of your investment partner is the second most important decision in your life, that of your soulmate, because you're going to be spending more time with him or her than you will with your husband or wife, because you'll be taking much more difficult decisions with them, and because you will be spending a lot of the time in and hopefully generating not so much babies, but definitely employees and people that could be contributing to it. The final learnings: always go for grants first. Don't try to go as equity. Then build up your model, move to debt, and from debt you move to equity. And consider phasing your equity. Don't try to get it all up front. You'll be diluted. You don't want to be severely diluted. You want to do this on a phase basis. All this might sound Chinese to some of you. Don't worry. Been bathing in it for the past 35 years. I've been heading HP Financial Services in the 80s and 90s, and we funded hundreds of technology companies where HP wanted to invest in companies that could complement their R&D. So it's a way for them to outsource the R&D. So I've learned the ropes. I've applied it with large diversified group like Al Ghurair, who is present in 25 countries. And now the most important thing is to apply it for the people who has most need, which is small, medium-sized enterprises and social enterprises. And this is what I've been doing in Africa for the past 5 years. And of course, Lebanon also for a number of years with Veritech and with others. And in case you're interested, I'm going to write my name. I'm going to stop now, take your questions. And thank you for your patience. I know it has been a long haul. I will exit the sharing on it. And then we will, Sarah, are you still with me? Sarah is with me. You could,
Yes.
Okay, so Sarah, if there is any questions, maybe we could take the question. It's Viktor Frankl, you're right. So who is Prince Kobla? So Viktor Frankl is the person who developed logotherapy. Thank you, Prince, for it. Okay, so any, Sarah, you want to go through the question while I write my name and contact details? Go ahead.
Okay, do you want people to raise their hands, then we can give them the...
No, let them type. Let them type the questions on the chat, and then you read them while I'm typing my.
Sure.
So let them type the questions, and then so I'm putting my name. This is not private. I want to do it for all of them. So all panelists and attendee. So what I'm typing is I'm typing my WhatsApp number 96179185166. You have my name. It's Constantin Salameh. You could Google it. This is the WhatsApp number. For those of you who are not on my distribution list and want to be on my distribution list, I'll be happy to include you on it. I conduct these webinars on a regular basis. Today I had 2. Yesterday I had 1, and I have several on a weekly basis on different topics that we do. But the core of it is to help small, medium-sized enterprises and social enterprise go through the crisis, be able to minimize the impact of the crisis, and being able to raise funds as more funds will be coming to this country and to the region in Africa and in the Middle East. So you have my contact details here. Feel free to reach out to me. Any questions? We have still 13 minutes. So how many people are still there? We have 57.
57.
Don't tell me there is no questions. I'll be very disappointed.
Constantin, someone was asking before if the slides will be shared by email.
Yes, it's a good one. So the recording will be shared. The slides will be shared, and the slides include the templates. So, but trust me, the slides by themselves don't mean a lot. So you need to have someone with you to help you take these templates and apply them. Yes, the slides will be shared, and yes, the recording will be shared. Shara, could you also send me the link to the recording on it?
Sure.
Sarah, you have a copy of my presentation, yes? Is it now, or can you download it from this, or you cannot download it?
I don't think I can. No, I'm gonna.
Okay, so I'll forward it to Sarah. And what you need to do is you've registered. So normally Sarah has your contact details. If you haven't, contact Sarah, and I will send her a copy of the presentation.
I will share it by email.
Okay. Okay, so this is Karim coming up with a question. I'll read it, Sarah, don't worry. Would an offshore Lebanese firm operating worldwide be considered for? Okay, this is a good question. The priority is really for Lebanese companies. So now we have funded companies that were offshore. But what's important is we want to have contributions. So part of your business needs to be in Lebanon. So you might have the team of developers, you might have a team of, I don't know, whatever it is your business you're in. So there needs to be value creation in the country. We don't want to use funds in Lebanon to fund entities outside. We want to focus on Lebanese companies. So being it Cedar, being it IM Capital, being it all of the others that I've mentioned, they look at having, now we can understand, and actually we are encouraging companies to set up operation overseas. We're encouraging them to export, and we have a number of companies where 95% of their revenue is coming from outside. So this we have no problem with, but we want to have a local presence and value contribution in the country. Okay, so this is clear. I hope I answered. Sure, I plan to partner with one firm in Lebanon and use this idea. This is a good example. So if you're planning to do this, we will help this company go. You need to apply, go through this pitch deck that I've described you. If you need help on it, we could help you, assign an advisor with you and help you put it together and help you put in front of investors that you have. So this we accept. This is fine. So any other questions? So we have Karim Hadi. Thanks. Interested in knowing how politicians react to your message and what is happening. Okay, 331, the central bank, for those who are not from Lebanon, central bank, the circular 331 is the one that has been providing funding for the past 5 years to a number of venture capital companies. Now, central bank, as you know, have a number of challenges on their heads. So I don't think 331 is their priority for the moment. So hopefully it will be. But I think there's many more challenges to make sure that our banks are sustainable on it. So how would politicians, probably those who believe that this is the right thing will react positively, and those who believe that it's not the right things will react negatively. Now, what's important is you need to walk the talk. You need to walk what you believe is the right thing. And I know that there are a number of politicians and a number of activists that are here from civil society and others who think the same way. And I'm convinced that our voice will be loud enough to be heard. And hopefully we have the right people with the right roadmap to be able to implement it. And you're going to hear about it in the newspaper in the months to come. Okay, so let me take the other questions. So, but you cannot live your life by looking at how people are going to react, because if you do this, you don't live your life. So it's important that you live your life by what you believe is the right thing for you and for what is your life project that you have. Okay, what are your thoughts on knowledge economy-based business systems? Is classical economy? Okay, now there is a huge potential for the knowledge economy. So this is coming from Leah on it. So this is, and we are providing a lot of support because this is the way to be able to optimize, reduce and simplify a lot of the tasks that we're doing. It being from government to the way you purchase goods to the way you choose your services. So the digital economy will take a more important role, and a lot of the funds will go to companies that are using technology either as an enabler or they're using technology as a way to provide others with this enabler. So this has a big future ahead of it, and you have a number of fields in knowledge-based economy, since classical economy will be a bit challenging before. Okay, this is clear. Let me continue through this. Hello, Constantin. Is Veritech able to act as a valuation firm? Okay, we do valuation. Actually, every single one of the company that we have funded, we valued it because we're funding it with equity capital. So we are evaluating it. We're deciding what is the value. It might not be to the what I call the pleasure of the founder, because all the founders feel their company is worth so many more $1 million than what we believe. But we do the valuation. You cannot go and take equity capital without valuing the company, and we are providing it for a service. So what we call, this is part of our business advisory services. We help the companies put together their investment memorandum. We help validate their financial transaction. We help also defining what the value is the company, and we help putting them in front of investors to be able to pitch. But we're also taking 5% in terms of performance fee for those capital that have been raised, because this is a way for us to fund, but it's a win-win. We're not successful, we don't get paid. We are successful and we help you, we get paid. And this is a typical process that we will do. And you have no problem in giving 5% for a company that has providing you with these value-added services behind it. So yes, we provide it, and we've been continuing to provide it. Leah, how to productize our services? Do you feel a market appetite for subscription? Okay, we're going to go into specific elements. It's critical that you need to make it to productize, as you put it, Leah. So I mentioned the process of design thinking. I don't know if it was this webinar or the one I had before, but a lot of it, you put it at the design phase, and we spend a lot of time in design thinking. You go take your idea, develop your prototype, test your prototype, validate it with your customers, come back to the drawing board, change it, and make sure that this is addressing the needs of your customers. So this whole process of design thinking, moving from the ideation phase to the MVP phase, to the prototype phase, to the final product phase, is a very important one. And a number of companies are not spending the attention behind it. And this is why we have a lot of effort to do. Any other questions?
Constantin, there was a question from Naji Paul.
Yes.
Before he asked, if you create a Lebanese subsidiary, can you help us launch it?
Yes, as I said, if it's a Lebanese subsidiary, and there is that not only subsidiary in terms of a box office, PO box, but a subsidiary with real value that you have here, you have people that are part of your development team. And trust me, you do not feel better place to invest, and you will see that I'm crazy, but I'm not crazy. Because of the devaluation, because of the salary structure that you have graduates from AUB, LAU, all the others that are extremely competent, that are getting salaries that are peanuts today compared to what it is. So there is a huge advantage in terms of having a knowledge-based workforce in this country that is being able to develop products that will be exported. So make use of this talent, because this talent is existent and you have a very high level of unemployment these days. So this is quite important. Okay, I appreciate all what has been said. I'm interested in building a fresh food manufacturing in Ghana, West Africa. With your experience, do you think it will be viable? Okay, I'm working with actually a couple of companies in West Africa. One is in Ghana. It's also one of the largest papaya plants. It's also, you have passion fruit, you have mango behind it, and pineapple. What's important in this, and not only for a fruit plantation, is you need to go to where the value-added services are. So selling fruits, building fruits and selling fruits is important. And in Lebanon also we do this, but move to value-added services. What is value-added services? And when you go to derivatives, what are the derivatives of it? This is fruit juice. This is pulp that you make to make ice cream and others. So go for the products that have the highest gross margin and where you have more value added to bring. So yes, it is feasible, but focus on the right derivative. And this, by the way, applies to all the companies. Don't look at where your profit pools are, where you can make money, where you cannot make a lot of money. And you can make money in West Africa. And I've been working with also other companies in the agro space, in Ghana, in Ivory Coast, and in Nigeria behind it. Okay, Karim, hold on, now you're going too much with your questions. Sarah, make me a favor, go through them one by one so I'll be able to answer them.
Okay, so there's a question from Karim Hajar.
Yes.
He's asking if it's true for the favorable devaluation impacting the cost. No, he's saying that it is true for the favorable devaluation impacting the cost, but you won't benefit from any or at least helpful banking services due to the lack of funding. Don't you think it's important for any?
No, it is. It is important, and you're right. We will not have support from the banks today. Because frankly speaking, the bank are in a very, very difficult situation. And part of it is their own fault. So what you do is they have extended loans to customers, and these customers are going, and the major customer, of course, is the Lebanese government. And you know what's happening with our default on these loans. So the banks are exposed. They're exposed because their main customer is exposed, and because the other customers, as a result of the crisis, are also exposed. So I'm expecting recapitalization. I'm expecting a number of banks to either merge or to close down shops. We unfortunately don't have what other European or the US have, where you have guarantees. So there is a risk also on deposit, although there is a lot of good positive messages. But if the situation and the crisis continue, we have, so the issue is don't expect money from your banks. If you want to get money, we have a number of funding sources that we have available. Happy to reach out, send me your WhatsApp details, send me your investment proposal, and I'll be happy to look at it and to tell you which is the right funding source for you. So yes, there is a problem with the banks today, and it will continue. Hopefully not too long, but as long as these reforms are not implemented, we are not in a good situation in this country. We are not. And these financial crisis and economic, we have a contraction of 25% of the economy. 25% between 2019, 2020. It never happened. It never happened before. And in 2021, there'll continue to be contraction. To be able to recover from this is going to take us at least 10 years to go back to where we were 3 years ago. So it's a very difficult situation ahead of us. So anyway, I don't want to paint it, but at the same time, I hope you got also the positive message behind it all. Okay, any other questions, Sarah?
There's Damien asking if there is a ceiling to the grant, or if
Okay,
they're just high on environment and growth.
There is a ceiling. So what we do, the project that we are coming and launching next month is focusing on environment, i.e. energy, clean technology, agro-food, and on water management. There'll be a ceiling of $500,000, but these are grants. These are grants that you have. Al-Fanar is providing grants to social enterprises. I think they also cap at about $500,000. They might have a little bit more. So grants, you will not get grants for 5 million or 10 million. But I tell you, $500,000 is already a big amount of money that could help you put together your act, make sure that you are ready to scale behind it. Most of the grants that you have today in competition or from Accelerator are between $30,000, maximum $50,000. So this is what you get in grants. Yes?
There's a very important question by Naji. He's asking, when we get the fundings, we have to use a Lebanese bank account. So what about the risks?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what we do is, now the good news is from some of these donors, money is coming outside. If the money is coming outside, it's fresh money. So this, you will get fresh money. So we have, and we're checking for this. But you're right, a number of others, it's local money that you get. But local money will cover your local expenses. So it might not be fresh money, but it could be local money that cover your expenses. If it's a grant, take it. You know, even if it's local, I take it. I cover my local expenses. And anyway, most of the salaries today are in Lebanese pounds. You know, so it's local money that you need. So yes, you have an exposure, but more and more of the grants will come from overseas international donors, and this will be fresh money.
And in Lebanese lira, it might also lose its value over time.
Of course, it will. As the reforms are not implemented, you know, I won't be surprised. Now we're trying to have les forces de sécurité intérieure that are going to put people in jail because you have black market. You don't control a black market. You don't. This is the wrong decisions. You don't do these things. If the black market is here, it means that effectively the Lebanese pound is not worth the 3,960 that you think, but it's probably worth 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. You could put people in jail for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but you will not be able to sustain it. Sooner or later, the black market rate will be there. And the quicker we are to realize it and accept it, and this is terrible, because this will be that the prices of goods are going up and inflation rate is going up. And this is where I'm most concerned of, is having the poverty level go to the 70%, like we have in Venezuela, and look at their currency. The average salary of a Venezuelan today is $7 to $10 a month. Is this what we want in our country? This is happening. And it might, maybe we're not there, but it might happen in terms of if the reforms are not implemented. And it's the last thing, because all the competent people will go. All the entrepreneurs will go. They say, Constantin, thank you very much, all great programs, but we won't stay. So it's important not only to help these entrepreneurs, but also to make sure that we have the right political system in place to take the right measures. Can we submit? I mean, you could submit it. What I do is I review them. So this is from Damien, and I will give you a quick feedback in terms of if it's acceptable, not acceptable. I'll give you some example of best practices in your sector. And if you're ready, I'll put you in contact with the right funding sources. So you could do this. You have my WhatsApp detail. I didn't put my email. I'll put my email on it. Any other questions, Sarah?
There is in the Q&A someone asking if a bank has a legal right to convert a pre-crisis kafalat loan in LBP to dollars. And if they do so, can they use the 1,500 exchange rate to pay the loan?
I don't have the answer. I don't have. Okay. Now I know the people in kafalat. I know the Khater, who is the managing director. I know Basel On, who is in head of the equity providers. I know they will do the things that is fair for the country and based on whatever guidelines they have. So I don't have the exact answer to your question, but my recommendation is to ask directly to the kafalat, and they're all very competent people. And I know that their programs will continue. They might have put a stop on the kafalat loans. They have made a stop on the grants that have been providing, and hundreds of companies have benefited from it. But this will come in the future. It will come. Mm-hmm. Other questions?
Those are the questions.
Okay, so let me put it to all now. So we have to all panelists attendees. This is my email. This is the private email, Salameh. And actually, if you Google me, you find it. And you have a number of videos that I've put on the board. So this is, and I have another one with Veritech. Okay, look, I thank you for the time. It's 7:04. Thank the Bloc National. Sorry for the emotional a few seconds that I have remembering the good times that we have with Raymond Ede. My regards to Carlos, for those of you who know him. We have been playing together when we were kids. Our parents were very close friends. And I know that the Bloc National is in good hands today. And if I could be of help, I'll be happy to do so. So all the very best to all of you, and keep faith. You have it. I know it's going to be tough times, and I know a number of you are really questioning yourself. I'm having another webinar on living a meaningful life. This is taking place next Monday. This is nothing to do with finance, nothing to do with strategy, nothing to do with investment readiness, but it has to do with the more essential person is who are you? Who are you, and what do you want to do with your life? And if you could answer these questions, this would be great. So it's next Monday. It's from 5:30 to 7. If you're not on my distribution list, send me a WhatsApp. I'll put you on my distribution list. And I wish you all the best. Thank you to the Bloc National. Thank you for the Rassemblement.
Thank you very much, Constantin, for being the navigator.
Thank you.